So on the subject of slowing your people down, because in many cases the system is commanding them explicitly or implicitly to hurry up, well, what happens in that decision-making process is that everything gets sped up. And so cops have a very consistent tendency to base their actions on the right that they have to do something. The law says I can do this. Great. You need to distinguish the right to do something from the wisdom to do something. When I'm at a stoplight and the light turns green, I have the right to proceed through the intersection. Wisdom tells me to take a second and look both ways in case somebody else is running that light. It's the same thing in terms of anything in law enforcement. If we're imposing our will on somebody in society, we may have the legal right to, but what does wisdom tell us? Crazy case in point. So an officer, I don't know the agency, I forgot, but they stop a lady for doing 32 and a 25. And she's pregnant, and they stop her, and she's very upset. And so the officer's like, give me your ID. Of course, she doesn't want to give it. She's upset. And so it immediately escalates to, I'm going to rip you out of the car. And she doesn't want to get out of the car. So what does the officer do? Tases her 3 times and pulls her out of the car and arrests her. Okay. Did the officer have the right to make an arrest? Sure. Refusing to show ID, cooperate, misdemeanor. Cool. Great. What does wisdom say? Wisdom says, okay, well, is she trying to hurt you? Is she an officer safety threat? Is she going to run you over? Does she have any weapons? If not, what do I have? Let me see. What do I have to make this situation better? To make better decisions. I have time and I have backup. The wisdom also says, well, let's forget the infraction citation for doing 7 over in the first place. Switch lenses from an enforcement lens to a compassion lens and go, okay, what's going on? I see that you're very upset. From the officer's perspective, do you already know who you're dealing with? You should. I mean, you have the vehicle license plate. If it's registered to that person, you can find out her information. Hopefully you have body cam footage. You can identify her later on through photos in the system or facial recognition. So how about switching gears? Are you okay? You're upset. Clearly what's going on here shouldn't you upset you that much. How can I help you? Now, does that conversation take more time? Does it force me to hit the pause button on my right to do something? Yeah. But notice, to everybody that I talk to about this that's outside of the system, it's common sense. It's like that would be one of the first things to come to mind. Let's switch gears for a second. Let's get out of enforcement mode and let's get into compassion mode and figure this out. Take the time to do so. Subconsciously, officers in those situations where they're massively understaffed, I don't have time for this. I mean, I have to get this done and move on to the next. There's other things to do subconsciously. So all those great decisions that they're supposed to be making don't come to mind, which again, slow down and distinguish. I have the right to. What's the wisdom say that I need to do? Slow down. Take the time. What should I value? Human life. Now, if that was, say, somebody that I knew and that I loved in that situation, would I want to tase them out of the car? Of course not. So then every single person we contact, what should the same context be? Treat them like you would a highly esteemed loved one. Keeping in mind the officer safety components of that, there may be people that you want to treat the same way, but they may want to kill you. Have a plan for that. But what part of the decision-making factors comes in there? Well, it's the information, it's the skill set. And sadly, in my experience, most cops don't know how to fight, and they don't shoot very well. So you have a massive knowledge gap there and skill gap that needs to be addressed. The most humble, quiet, reserved people I've met, Navy SEALs. Some of the baddest of the bad out there, and you would never know it in talking to them. People that I've trained martial arts with and sparred with, you look at them, it's like, doesn't look like anything. And then you realize how good they can fight. So the idea is that if your employees, especially patrol officers, have the skill sets to fight, defend themselves, whatever, when somebody gets upset, it shouldn't upset them. We shouldn't have the contempt of cop, which is a character issue. It should be, okay, they're upset. How can I navigate this? Not take it personally, slow down, switch lenses, take your time, take your rights and put them on pause for a second and operate by wisdom. Have these conversations with your employees. If you're leading sworn officers, again, going back to that concept of ask, tell, make, have a exercise with your employees. How much time between tell and make? Does it have to be right now? And it's amazing. I've had this conversation with employees, and the deer in the headlights look and the confusion on the face, like, oh my gosh, that is so simple. That is so easy. Why didn't we think of it? Everything we've been talking to up to this point, all that background information, when the brain gets programmed and you stop thinking and you just start doing, and everything else you see around you, everybody else is doing it that way, so it must be right. No, no, and no. And I can't tell you how many times I've had deputies come to me afterwards and say, I really appreciate you taking the time to do this, to say this, to open our eyes, to encourage us to think, and that you're actually supporting us and slowing down and taking time. Because again, you go back to that system I talked about earlier, when you have to start asking for backup too much, what happens to the beat partners? They get mad. Well, you're pulling me away from my calls. You're pulling me away from my beat. You're making my stuff stack up. Stop doing that. Even when I was on patrol as a young deputy, peers would come up to me, stop making vehicle stops, stop arresting people. My thought was, well, if I'm arresting people, they're not committing the crimes that you're going to pass calls for. So, interesting story. I'll tell you more about that later. But the thing is, make sure you understand the system you operate in. Make sure you communicate the right values with your people, and make sure they understand the system that they're operating in, and encourage them to slow down, pause their rights if they can, come up with a better strategy that takes more time, use the resources, and then commend them for that. Commend them for what they did personally and publicly. And as you should know, I believe every leader should do this. You commend and praise in public, and you correct in private. Caveat to that, if somebody fronts you off in front of everybody else, like in, say, a briefing, you don't have to have the conversation right there, but it's one of those things, well, I see you have strong feelings about that subject. I don't quite like the way you just addressed that with me, so after briefing, we'll go ahead and have a conversation in my office. Lets everybody know that was fair, it was reasonable, this person messed up. I had that happen one time in a briefing with a deputy of very low character who ended up getting fired, who was mouthing off at something I said as a lieutenant. The nice thing is I had such a good relationship with the deputies that the deputies in the room looked at this guy and was like, dude, no, stop that, stop that. So it's just one of those things where, again, take care of your people, help them to understand the world they live in, encourage them to make good decisions, and they'll give you those good decisions on a regular basis in spite of the system that's compelling them to do something else.